Hey everybody, this is Mark from We Talk Art. I believe that most artists are creative, innovators, experimenters, and DIY kind of people, do it yourself. As a result, I find that they often search ways to make their art better, more authentic, easier, harder, cheaper, or just different. To do this, they may look to teachers, search the internet, look to history, or just explore the hardware store. But when artists use some of these ideas, tools, or techniques beyond standard current art practices, they should be aware that there could be some pitfalls. So let's roll the intro and get into it. I want to start by making a few things clear. I am not the art police. I am not telling you what you can and cannot do. I mainly want to encourage you to be thoughtful when navigating some of these options as you look beyond art craft. I think it's very important for artists to try new things, and doing that will often take you beyond typical art supplies and techniques. This experimentation, testing, play is a huge part of art, and I don't want this video in any way to prevent you from that play. Artists don't always follow the rules. That's one thing that kind of makes us artists. I also appreciate that art supplies can be expensive for some people. This may force them to use alternatives to expensive art supplies. You use what you can. The priority is to make art. With that said, I feel like if you have the means, you should give thought to what art supplies you use and when you should stray from traditional supplies that are available. Again, I'm not saying you shouldn't use alternatives, just that should be a thoughtful decision. Just because someone says it's cheaper, equivalent, different, or better may not always be the case. They may be doing something different from you. They may have different level of expectations or quality than you. To be honest, they may not even know what they're talking about. Stock is cheap. You should research, test yourself, and really determine if the product, tool, technique has value for you in your art. And I'm going to talk about value because I think that's mainly the point here. There are many cases when I've talked to people who have wanted to do art in a medium and chosen to go on the cheap or use some non-standard product, only to have the bad experience and decide that art or that medium wasn't for them. All too often, the problem was not them. It was probably the alternative or cheap art supply that they chose. A good art supply will often do a better job, last longer, produce better results than a cheaper or alternative product. In the case of paint, a better art paint will often have more and higher quality pigments, meaning that they will go farther, reducing the cost advantage of the cheaper options. Furthermore, cheaper paints often have cheaper pigments that will not mix and perform as you expect them to. You would expect if you took a yellow and a blue and mixed them together, you'd get a nice green, not mud, which is often what you'll get with a cheaper paint, mud. Why can't you get those lovely colors? You might check your paint. Furthermore, non-artist paints are designed for different applications, and their performance for art things are kind of an unknown. This is just one example how cheaper alternative material could hold you back or your art. Working in an art supply store for many years, I heard all kinds of ways people attempted to make better or different art, save money, did what someone told them to do, or did what they thought the pros did. And some of them were a bit horrifying. Again, not to say there isn't cheaper, equivalent, or more creative options out there. It's just that it can be really hard to determine if they are truly as good or even the same quality, or if they have some hidden pitfall, something you may not know about for months or even years later. With that said, I know a lot of artists and teachers who have found products outside the art supply space for their art and do amazing things with them. The most successful have spent the time and energy to ensure that the materials, tools, and processes will work for them and produce results that meet their vision and sense of quality. It is just that you really need to do your own research and testing to make sure the products and tools will meet your requirements. A mistake could go badly. And to be honest, those alternative processes and materials are just not a great idea for someone that's new to art. If you are new to art, I really recommend sticking to the tried and true until you get a sense of how these things should work and what you're trying to achieve. So, if you are new to art, concentrate on learning the craft with good art supplies you can afford. An example of this is the often recommended use of hairspray as a fixative for graphite, charcoal, or pastel. A fixative is used to make graphite or similar mediums adhere to the paper. Fix it. I understand that a good fix can cost a bit, but when I buy something like a Winsor Newton fix, I can be very confident it will do its primary task, fix the artwork. In addition, there's a ton of other things I also expect my fix to do. Come out of the bottle evenly and in the right quantities, not blob up, not cause the graphite or charcoal to move when it's being applied, dry in a way that it's undetectable and not yellow, crack, or cause the art supply to fade over time. It would be horrible to ruin a piece of art you had worked on for hours just because you were trying to save a couple bucks. The hairspray may fix your drawing, but it may also have perfumes or any number of other chemicals that does hair stuff and won't help you with your intended use, causing a multitude of unforeseen problems down the road. Keep in mind that hairspray is made for a completely different application. It is for the temporary use to make your hair look amazing, and then it is designed to wash away with water. None of the hairspray manufacturers are testing to see if their products can be used as a fix or that these quality control is appropriate for art. What could go wrong, right? Yet, I still hear this recommendation all the time. When I was at the Golden Artist Colors factory last year, one of the things that really impressed me was how much effort Golden put into testing their new products and their existing manufactured products. They had a whole team that did just this, and a significant part of their manufacturing space was designated for testing and design. When you pay the premium for good art supplies from a reputable manufacturer, you should realize that you are getting the value that the product should be tested so it does its job, and tons of other things you don't even know you may want, like a product that is safe for you and your art. It's environmentally safe to make and use, that it is not going to adversely react with any other product that you're using, that it doesn't change with temperature or humidity that affects its permanence, and that it will last for many years, if not more, just to name a few. This level of quality control and the materials to achieve this do not come cheap. Yes, there may be another product just like it in another industry, but these products are not held to the quality control standards that are necessary for your art. It's not to say that they're better or worse, it's just to say the other products are being tested for a different use. Hairspray may be tested to see if it changes a person's hair color, and then if it gets in your eyes it doesn't cause pain, where a fix for a pastel, it will be tested to see if it changes the color of your pastel over decades. A while back, we were at an art show. We went into an artist's booth and he was showing his drawings that were made with pen. They were impressive to the point that I was considering buying one. His prices were not unreasonable for that work, but they weren't cheap. Me being me and an art supply store owner, I asked, "What pen were you using for your work?" The artist said, with an air of attitude and in a way I think he thought he was going to impress me, "I just use any pen I find." And he actually had one of those free pens you might get from your insurance agent. Then I asked about the paper, and I got pretty much the same response. I understand that some artists want to stand out as some kind of rebel or want a cool story, but for me, I have no desire to pay those kind of prices for artwork that is probably going to fade and the paper is going to yellow in a fairly short amount of time. Many cheap ballpoint pens are not permanent, not light fast, not stable for long periods of time, and cheap paper will often yellow and will accelerate the fading of the cheap ink. For the price he wanted for his art and his obvious means, he could have afforded a $4 permanent art pen and a pad of suitable paper. Obviously, he didn't make the sale. When you start into art or a new medium, it does not make sense to go out and buy the most expensive, best products you can get. But you want a quality that will allow you to be successful. Keep in mind, there's a lot of cheap art supplies and alternatives touted that don't live up to that. Also, if you're going to share or sell your artwork, you have to ensure that you are going to meet your customer or collector's expectations for the life of that art too. This again doesn't mean you have to buy the best expensive stuff. It just means you should pay attention to things like permanence, light fastness, pH neutral, or if it's archival. Unless your art's fugitive nature is part of your shtick and you're intentionally making something that is not meant to last, then you just need to communicate that to your collectors. In some cases, that may be part of the value. You get to enjoy this uniquely fragile thing for its short life, like a flower. The flip side is that you can use the fact that you've researched and chosen your art supplies that will make the art last a lifetime as a value too. The last point I want to make is one of value of time. When I worked, I had limited time to do my art. Now that I'm getting older, well, I have limited time to do my art. So when I get the opportunity to make art, I concentrate on the part of the process I enjoy and that I'm good at. It's not to say that there aren't aspects I don't enjoy that I must be done, like cleanup, but I try to avoid things that don't bring me value and that I can buy. When I worked in an art supply store, I would often see people that thought to be an artist they needed to stretch their own canvases. To be clear here, if you get something of value from this, you should stretch your own canvas. Meaning that if you can stretch a better canvas than you can buy, a different canvas than you can buy, or you just like to stretch canvases, then you should stretch your own canvases. Yet, I would see people come in and buy cheap prime canvas and standard stretcher bars, which would probably not allow them to make a canvas even as good as they could have purchased for less money. And at times, I would later see some of these canvases and it kind of confirmed my suspicions. Stretching a canvas is an art. If I felt brave, I would ask them, why do you stretch your own canvases? And I would usually get that was the way I was taught, or I was told I should. I would often follow up with, do you want to stretch canvases or paint? I've honestly had people look at me with their mouth open as they contemplated the answer to that question. Keep in mind, you can make a lot of products to make your art. You can make mediums, you can make paint, you can make charcoal, you can make paper, you can make inks. The list goes on. And I know artists that make these to great value. But you have to decide if it is value to you and your art, or if you're just trying to meet someone else's idea of value. Keep in mind, making many of these products will rarely save you money, is hard to make better than what you can buy, and will definitely eat into a lot of your art making time. For me, it is fun to experiment and play, but I don't see the value in making these things on a regular basis, at least not right now. Figure out where that line is. Will it help your art, productivity? Will it make you something that you're proud of? The trick is to find an art that you like and enjoy making and find an audience for it. Connecting your value with their values is a win-win, but if you're just doing it the hard way and no one cares, well, then you have to decide if the value is worth it for you. A similar experience comes from my photography. I've heard all too often the saying that pro photographers only ... Most often that's followed by shoot in manual mode, manually setting all the settings on the camera to get the correct exposure for each shot, not using any automatic tools. Yes, it's romantic if it's true. Since I have worked in photography and I know my share of professional photographers, I can tell you this isn't the case. Sometimes manual mode is the right choice, but not all the time, and for many, almost never. Why buy an expensive tool like a camera only to use part of what it can do? Yet I see a lot of people new to photography struggling with the challenge of trying to manipulate 3 variables, shutter speed, f-stop, and ISO, as some scene is playing out before them, only to miss the shot. Some people like to do it the hard way, manual way, traditional way, because they enjoy it, is part of their story, or is part of their learning process. I make all my inks from healing herbs that I grow in my own garden. This is a cool and great story, but it'll probably cut into your art making time seriously. The value question is up to you. Just make sure it is your story and not one that someone has pushed on you. Also remember that people who buy your work may not care. And sorry, but people generally will not buy bad work no matter how hard it was to make. I guess my point is, make sure that the work, time, and money you put into the process is yielding you something of value. If not, find something better. The canvas and manual mode points are just two examples of processes I've seen people do that they think are making a better product, saving them money, or they were just told that's the way to do it. The challenge is that people new to the arts will often hear these things and think that these are a rule or that's the way the pro artist did it. But the reality is that all too often they're shooting themselves in the foot. If it brings you or your art value, do it. But spend some time thinking about these things that you do or are using that may not be standard art craft, and make sure they are truly giving you the value you think you are getting. Also, spend the time to research the materials you are using to make sure they meet your quality you want to produce and have represent you. That is what pros do. As I said, I sold art supplies for many years, and I can tell you that more often than not, the quality art supplies, even at their premium price, are a better value. It will often work better for your art. It will often be better designed to endure the ravages of time. It will have quality control that will have you, the artist, in mind. It will have customer service information for you as the artist, and it will have a user base that can help you get the most out of it. With all of that said, there are materials, tools, and techniques borrowed from other places that work very well in art. And advanced techniques, if mastered, will make your work stand out. And I'm sure that all you DIY artists will find even more all the time. There are many articles and discussions online about various tools and materials. It is a great place to find sources of helpful information. Let us know if you have any unusual products, tools, or techniques that work for you, or ones that don't. Share them with the community in the comments below. If you like this video or our channel, please subscribe. It is free to you and has value, and it helps us out a lot. Now go make some art.